Tanager is here for children, teens, young adults, and families as they navigate the many stressors of the world today. Tanager inspires, empowers, and heals by providing tools and support needed to navigate the hardships of life and overcome obstacles. Our expertise and specialty trainings offer a wide range of approaches, and we'll join alongside you to create solutions to enhance your wellness. We are here for you and your family. Tanager, inspire, empower, heal.
Tanager and the Meraki Institute of Learning proudly present Together We Rise,
a series based on the RISE Wellness and Resilience framework.
In times of uncertainty and adversity, it is easy to feel overwhelmed and disheartened.
Amidst the challenges our community may face,
let us never lose sight of the strength and resilience that also resides in our neighborhoods.
This series highlights the vital role each of us have in nurturing that resilience.
That community impact.
The power and influence each of us have to show up in spaces
with empathy,
openness,
and kindness.
Because it is in this collective that connections grow stronger,
our compassion shines brighter,
and our spirit rises even higher.
It is together
that we rise.
Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Together We Rise. Co-hosts here, Tanya.
And Jenny.
And a guest today is Ryan Waller. Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. My name is Ryan Waller. I'm a city manager for the best place in Iowa to raise a family and grow a business, Marion. Been with the city about 2 years, originally from Chicago, and did my undergrad in Iowa City and just absolutely fell in love with the state.
Yeah, very neat. I don't think that I knew that you're from Chicago when we chatted. Big city.
Big city, yeah.
Yeah, that's neat. A different perspective than bringing in.
Absolutely, but love it here. Would never go back.
Yes. Well, Ryan, you and I chatted, so much of this series is about talking about wellness, resilience, your own personal why. I got the chance to chat with you and hear a little bit about your story. Mm-hmm. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
So when I was younger, my parents got divorced, and it was a long, drawn-out divorce. It was a bit challenging on everybody. And really, my dad and his family, his extended family, I don't want to say abandoned the family, but really were not part of our lives. So my mother was a teacher, had to raise 4 kids by herself.
Wow.
So.
Wow. I can't help but imagine that so much, we know, right? We know when we think about wellness, resilience, our experiences shape who we are, that so much of that influenced who you want to be for others, even as a city manager and Marion, who you want to be, what you want to foster in a community. When we were talking, you talked so much about that there are a lot of people who showed up for you.
Yep, that's accurate. Yeah, so I can just right off the top of my head, we had some neighbors in the neighborhood of Chicago that were there for us, aunts and uncles, family, friends, just anybody was there helping out. It was challenging. I mean, the lights were being turned off in our house because my mom couldn't make the utility bill payments. We had to have, duct tape on our gym shoes and things like that. And I can remember my aunt and uncle taking us out to a shoe store to make sure we had decent shoes because winter was coming around and it was cold out. So. I stumbled across local government as a career, and I'm thankful that I did because at its core it's about helping people, and so for me it's a lot of it is really just being able to pay back the folks that were there for us.
Yeah, I get, Jenny, we talk so much about meaning and purpose and giving back.
Yeah.
How much that's important in our own stories, but then how we foster that for other people's stories. What are you thinking about right now? I see your lights turning on.
Yeah, when you say that, and I think about your role as a city manager, right? And probably my own stereotypical impression of what does a city manager do, or how does the local city government function? What I hear from you is like this deep sense of mission, really, even connected to the work that you do. And how that probably changes the approach that you bring to the work, but also the conversation that's being had around the table when we're making hard decisions, right?
Yep.
So I'm curious how that kind of deep sense of why, or kind of your own meaning and purpose in this role kind of changes that conversation.
I think it's part of who I am. And so whenever we're talking, whether it's our team internally as we're talking through things, it's always part of that conversation that we got to be mindful that there's a lot of different people that we serve, different age groups, different needs. And we've got a fantastic team, and so a lot of folks have that, they have that servant heart, so they're always thinking about others, and we've got a wonderful council, and our mayor is just one of the best around, and they lead with their heart. And so it's kind of hard not to have it be centered to the conversation when we're talking about policies and projects. A really good example is we were talking about something like planting trees. And so the conversation with our team was centered around, well, let's make sure we're being cognizant of the different population groups within our community. And so we used available data to make sure that we were targeting those neighborhoods that may have been, like me growing up.
Yeah, so everyone gets some trees.
Yep.
Yeah.
It all matters. I think that's what I keep, like, every time that you talk, I just think of it all matters. And when it matters, it helps us feel a sense of purpose, right? And it helps also send the message to other community members that what they do matters. Right. You've talked a lot when you and I had a pleasure of chatting on the phone about kind of that ripple effect and that influence that it has.
Yeah, that reminds me of a conversation I was just having with my children the other day. We were huddled around the refrigerator, and I just pulled them aside, and I can't remember what the situation was, but we talked about something that it was a compliment that they got or whatever, and I just said, look, you guys, you're being leaders, you're considerate. Somebody said something about you, and you guys have wonderful smiles. And make sure that you share that, because positivity is infectious, and that's it is that ripple effect, and that you never know who's having a terrible day and could use a smile, and what that smile does.
Yeah.
One of the things, as you were talking about that, and I've got some kiddos as well, and I always think about, whether it's with my kiddos or the youth that we work with at Tanager, how often kids don't know what they contribute to the world, especially for kids who are growing up maybe experiencing some adversity and some tough times, or resources of adults are spread thin, like to feel seen and to have their contributions recognized. Even.
I've spent a lot of time reflecting on my childhood, especially now that I've got children of my own. And I have the benefit of being able to spend time with my mother. She's still around. And, one of the things I keep telling her is I wouldn't have changed anything, because, we talk about resiliency. And it was a struggle. And I can remember days where the lights flickered on and off because we couldn't make those utility bill payments. But it also taught me a lot about how to overcome obstacles. You have to scratch and save and work hard. And when I was in college, I had 3 jobs. I'd work in the morning, come back, go to class, work in the afternoon, come back, go to class, and then work the third shift, stocking shelves. But it's always tough when you're in it. And then once you're through it, you can look back and really relish in the fact that, I did that and I made it, and here I am, and the sun's shining, and it's a beautiful day, and I can look back at those accomplishments and feel proud.
Yeah. When you share those pieces of the story, what resonates with me is that undertone of gratitude, and that you arrived at this place of gratitude despite the hardships, primarily because there's a lot of, it sounds like, meaning making happening. Jenny, we talk a lot in Resilience about meaning making. What comes to mind for you when you hear him talk about that?
Even though this thing happened, and there's not necessarily a reason for all of those things that have happened, but it can serve as a reason for change. It can serve as a guiding light to something in my future, right? So I don't have to ask, why did it happen, but what am I going to take with me from this experience? What am I learning from it? What am I growing from it? Those pieces.
Well, and when I would find myself, start to kind of get in that mindset, I was having a conversation with my younger sister, and at one point she talked about when she got in situations like that, she would think back to like Nazi Germany, and she would think about what did folks in the concentration camp have to go through. And so after that, I reread the Diary of Anne Frank, and I started putting myself in her shoes. And then as I was going forward, my younger brother served in Iraq, and his gunner was killed in action. And I had a childhood friend who was in one of the World Trade Centers. And so I would constantly go back and think of, yes, I'm having a bad day, but then I think about some of those other folks that they never had the ability to experience a bad day, followed by the positivity of a good day. And so that really helped me kind of put things into perspective and realize that, you know what, if I'm going through something, everybody else is going through something like that too, but then how do you get yourself out of it?
Yeah. It makes me think so much of leading through empathy,
Right.
and how empathy fuels so much of our perspective,
Yep.
our decisions as community leaders. How do you use empathy every day?
That is one of the things that we talk quite a bit about with our
Really?
team. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
because
super powerful.
you have to understand where somebody else is coming from and meet them where they're at and understand that you don't know what they're going through. And so we're actually circulating a book right now. I had to reread it. It's a very short book. It's called This Is Water by David Foster Wallace. And it's a commencement speech that he gave. And it's a very short read. It's about a half hour. And I reread it. And again, I'm circulating amongst our team. But in there it talks about, when you get to your adult life, you go to your job.
Yeah.
And it's 5 o'clock, and then you're heading home, and then you realize that you don't have groceries, so you got to go to the grocery store, and everybody, traffic, and you get in there, and it's packed, and the lighting's bad, and somebody's, the checker's kind of lashing out at you, and the person giving the commencement said, but you don't realize, was that person at home caring for somebody who's ill? You don't know, is the parent that's yelling at their child in the aisle, maybe their significant other is overseas somewhere, or you don't know what it is. And so it's a good perspective to understand that when you're interacting with something, you have to lead with your heart. You have to understand that you don't know all that's going on, but you just have to be there for them.
Another thing that kind of resonated, you mentioned, going back to reading Anne Frank's diary and connecting with that. And from that same time frame came Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And it's always been one of my favorite books, and I go back to it often when I'm feeling kind of burnt out, or just, I talk about them as my existential crisis, right? Like everyone kind of has that. I typically after vacations, it's like, what is the world? I don't know. But what was always so powerful to me is this idea of, in order to get through the hard stuff, we have to see ourselves serving a purpose, right? And outside of ourselves, really, right? It's something that drives me to wake up every day, something that drives me to be here. And I'm sure, as leaders, we've gone through ups and downs, and our team has gone through really stressful things as we offer support to community. And I imagine working in the city is no different, of really experiencing some rough patches.
Yeah.
And so tell me just a little bit about, whether it's in your story or as a leader, kind of how that helping others connect with their sense of purpose to get through those hard times has.
You just told me a story the other day about your administrative assistant. When you walked in, she told you a story.
Yeah.
And what did you say to
Yeah.
her? Share that story.
Yeah,
I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, and that was just the other day. I walk in, and she had a big smile on her face. And I make sure I say hi to everybody. I want to make sure, Fridays I walk around, give high fives, and
See, you think of
whatnot.
that even.
Yeah,
That's powerful.
Yeah, it's how do you spread it? And she had shared that her son was at a wrestling tournament and got to meet one of the former Iowa Hawkeye wrestlers, and how kind and gracious he was, just to take the time to take pictures and give his autograph out. And she's like, I just got a smile on. And I said, you know what? I said, that's great. Keep that smile, but share that story, because it's important to share that positivity. Because then it's it's going to help other people maybe feel a little bit of happiness inside. And I think about some other challenges in my life that I've had. One in particular with my career. you know, there was a lot of times where I started to think of myself as the victim. And I stopped myself, and there was a gentleman that said, don't think of yourself as the victim, think of as the victor. And so what I started to do, aside from you know, thinking about others that have had other issues that I shared before, but what I would do is, you know, you'd hear stories about somebody with cancer or whatnot. So I'd take the time, whenever I would start to feel down, I'd reach out to them. Hey, how are you doing? You know, and really try to take that negative feeling that I had inside and really take it and show up for somebody else and see how, if that could make them feel a little bit more positive, more loved. And I found that, you know, when you think about it's greater to give than to receive, it really, that is very true.
What I love so much about both those stories is that you transfer this, you matter, you're important. Even to your administrative assistant who you were like, share that, giving her a purpose.
Right, right.
You know, like we get these little opportunities all the time to just say you're seen, like you matter. You know, people may not think that sharing a story like that would make a difference, but it made a difference for you. And you
Right.
said it can make a difference for other people.
Yeah, I'm getting chills thinking about it. I love nature, and I think about, you know, you mentioned gratitude, and I let my dog out one morning, and I just saw the sun rising, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at the shades, and it was great. And so I snapped a picture and I put it on social media. And the next day it was like, wow, it's a beautiful sunrise. I'm gonna snap it again. And it's like same vantage point, different sunrise, and I started noticing it more and more. And then all of a sudden, I'd be out and about in the community, and people were like, hey, I saw that picture. It was really great. It made me smile.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, okay, great. And so, you know, I sometimes I feel a little corny putting it up there, but it's like, I love nature, and then just to hear how many people it really touched, you're like, okay, great. Well, if I'm doing good with it, I'm sharing something that I love, and keep it going, right?
And what came up for me is what you pay attention to grows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think about that with social media, especially, you know, like so often people are probably scrolling through and you see ads and then all the negativity or, you know, like just intensity really.
Right.
But to like have a full picture of a beautiful sunrise, to just be like, oh, wow. And you took that yourself, you know, like to have that personal connection, like it makes sense why it was so impactful.
I tend to go down a rabbit hole too, and I think about, you know, all the things that had to have happened for us to be in this very moment, and how special that is. And there's a documentary about the Webb telescope, which is this telescope that is far more superior than the Hubble Space Telescope. They showed the first picture, and it's like 13 some odd billion light years, which is further than anything has ever seen. And you think about the vastness of everything, and just again, here we are getting to live on this planet, in this town, under the sun, and it's just, you think about it, and it's like, wow, that is truly a blessing.
Yeah. When we think about resilience here at Teenager, one of the big things we talk about is that sense of altruism.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's exactly what you describe, is that essence or that energy of altruism, that, you know, I'm one little piece of this really huge universe. And bigger than that is understanding then your influence, that when you make a decision as a city manager about a tree, that for some people it could be like, it doesn't matter where we put these trees, you know, but those decisions do matter when we're looking at the whole community, when we look at everybody.
Right. Yeah, you know, one of the things that we do is every Friday we'll send out an email to the community, and it's called the In Focus, and it's just, you know, quick.
In focus?
In Focus, yeah, and it's just little blurbs about all the things that we've got going on in our community, which is a lot, and it's a wonderful team effort, and our communications manager does a wonderful job, and I'm the lucky one that just gets to hit send.
It's the best part.
It is, but credit to the team, because they do a great job, and there's a lot of great work that we share. But the thing that I want to share about this is the amount of responses that I get. People taking the time to say thank you. But then it's through those little conversations that these relationships happen. So there's one resident who she'll just say thank you. And that thank you has morphed into, oh, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm hanging out with my grandkids. Oh, great. Oh, I'm doing this. And it's just like, so that one little thing has turned into something more impactful. And you know, I saw her and her grandkids when we were doing a parade one time, and saw her, and she got big-eyed and ran up. I gave her a hug, and it was just like, you think about what's being spread from that, and then she takes that energy and passes it on to other people.
Yeah, wow. You know, along with that altruism and that, you know, just truly the sense of community and like giving to each other, right? And there's like this sense of no one person in the community is any more important than anybody else. And I think, you know, especially that story, and when we think about systems and leadership and all of those pieces, how important it is to just be in that space together and, you know, just living the truth of everyone being the same value, you know, having that same truth.
That makes me think of, in particular, is
Yeah,
Ubuntu,
absolutely,
right? But
yeah.
share that with
Yeah.
Ryan. I think that would resonate really deep for him.
So, and it's a South African philosophy that I came across, again, down a rabbit hole, researching shame. I was in my Brene Brown era and things, and I came across this story in which the anthropologists that were studying in some South African indigenous villages had kind of an experiment for the children. They put a basket of fruit by a tree and had all the children line up over here and said, when I say go, you can all run over there. Whoever gets there first gets the whole basket of fruit to take home. And so they all lined up, and the anthropologist count down and said go, and all the children held hands together and ran to the basket of fruit and then shared it all. And so asked the children then later, you know, I know that you're so fast, you definitely could have got there before somebody else. Why did you choose to hold hands and run like this? And they said, Ubuntu, how can I be happy if my brother is sad? You know, it's this idea of I am because we are in so many ways.
Yeah, and you know, that's what, within the environment that is inside City Hall, I got little cards, and then I have a little certificate. And I always try to be intentional about, hey, glad you're on my team, or you know, you like the certificate, like you had the pleasure or the challenge of, you know, sitting in a car with me, you know, on the way to a conference or something, and it's like, you know, yeah, right, like, yeah, because I understand that my energy transfers, and I can get pretty intense, but you know, calling that out, you know, what do they bring, and taking the time to really say, you know, I appreciate you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the things that you do. Thank you here. Thank you for being late. You know, for staying late. Thank you for taking the time to answer that extra question, and just really call that out for people. Because again, people have a great, you know, you got to assume positive intent. And whether it's at work or part of your community, nobody's coming really they want to contribute. They want to be part of something.
That's exactly what I was thinking when you said it, is like that philosophy that everyone has something to contribute.
Yeah.
That's so much of meaning. That's so much of what fosters resilience, is that everyone has something to contribute. Whether you live in poverty right now today or not, you have something to contribute. Whether you are an addict struggling, you have something to contribute. Whether you have mental health, you have something to contribute.
There's and I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little city manager on you. One of the stories that I think it very much aligns with what you just shared. The story is President Kennedy's walking through the halls of NASA at a time when we're trying to get people into space, and he comes across a person who's sweeping the floors. And he says, "Oh, what do you do?" And the person responds, "I help put people into space." And again, it's like you think about everybody has something to contribute, because you know the place has got to be clean so the scientists can do the work, and then you know the training and this and that and the other thing, and it takes everybody to contribute. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Oh goodness, Ryan, thank you so much for being here with us today. You know, I say all the time, and this is stereotypical, right? But this is part of why we break down the barriers, have these conversations, to be male leader in our communities who believes so deeply in this empathy, who leads from a place of love, who leads from a place of belonging and connection. I know that it's not easy, and goodness, are we better off because of it.
Yeah. Well,
So
thank you.
you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Stay tuned next time on Together We Rise.
Wellness is also a phenomenon where we feel connected, right? If we are not connected, we are isolated, then that's also a problem. We talk a lot about in our community that, is it a place of belonging when we are alone, when we are isolated? Do we have somebody to talk to, somebody who has our welfare in mind? Government is one thing, but also, government provides services, all kinds of services, but are our neighbors, our people that we live with, are they also helpful to us? I mean, that makes community, that makes well-being.
Looking at racism as a public health emergency. We're human beings who have to care for each other. How does that strike you?
But we are all in it together. All the turmoils in the world that we are facing right now is because of that, our arrogance, our ego has, challenged our humanity sometimes, right?
No matter the challenges you and your family face, Tanager is here for you. We'll meet you wherever you are in your journey and together define a path to reach your goals. Together we rise.
Tanager is here for children, teens, young adults, and families as they navigate the many stressors of the world today. Tanager inspires, empowers, and heals by providing tools and support needed to navigate the hardships of life and overcome obstacles. Our expertise and specialty trainings offer a wide range of approaches, and we'll join alongside you to create solutions to enhance your wellness. We are here for you and your family. Tanager, inspire, empower, heal. Being a teenager is hard enough. Finding places to fit in, overcoming fears, and dealing with the stress of finding acceptance can be overwhelming. The LGBTQ Center at Tanager provides a safe and confidential environment for LGBTQ youth, families, and allies. Programs at the center are diverse and include support groups, mentoring programs, parent workshops, tutoring, and so much more. Meet new people and build a support network at the center. To learn more, visit tanagerplace.org. Tanager, inspire, empower, heal.
Thank you for joining us today and for spending time with us. We hope today's segment offered hope and inspiration. Today's series brought to you by Tanager and the Meraki Institute of Learning. For more information, please visit our website at www.tanagerplace.org.
No matter the challenges you and your family face, Tanager is here for you. We'll meet you wherever you are in your journey, and together, we'll define a path to meet your goals. Together we rise. Tanager.